Hello, my name is Cameron Scales alongside co-host Evan Scales. This is First in Cam. We're here to discuss week 2 of college football and week 1 of the NFL, some action-packed games this weekend. I want to jump right into college football and a rivalry close to our heart, Mizzou versus KU. They haven't met since 2011. Obviously, this is a good basketball rivalry too, where KU kind of dominates. But in football side, it's been Mizzou has been the team that's been successful. Obviously, with the move from the Big 12 to the SEC, this rivalry couldn't sustain itself. But I'm hoping that they can find a way to play this game every year or every other year at least. And the next game being in Lawrence. So Mizzou fans, I guess, kind of had a different idea how this game was going to go. A lot of Mizzou fans saw that 6.5-point spread and immediately kind of scoffed at it and thought, Mizzou's going to win by 2 touchdowns each, or at least. They're at home, super big rivalry game. People are expecting a lot about Mizzou. And Jalen Daniels had something else to say about that. And he came into Faro and really lit it up. And if it weren't for some mental errors, some drop passes from his receivers, that outcome is a lot different. Can you give me your thoughts on Bo Pribula and how he played versus how he looked versus UCA? And him going 30 for 39 was great to me. But at the same time, I do feel like there were some mental errors and some mistakes that he can't afford to make against better competition.
Yeah, that's fair. I actually, we covered the topic last week, and I thought Kansas would cover the 6 points. And for 3 quarters and like 4 minutes left, it looked like it was going to. Damn near Kansas was going to win. So,
right.
What an interesting game that was. His stat of 30 for 39 and the passing yards, he played fantastic. He won. It was awesome. But the first 3 drives were just kind of like, okay. So there was in a row, he had the fumble, which ended up being a fumble 6. That put Kansas up 21-6, I believe it was, because they had like a field goal blocked or something. And then the very next drive, they went 3 and out, and he had this weird thing in the pocket where he tried to like jump.
It was 14-6.
14-6 was the fumble?
Fumble 6, yeah. 14.
Okay, and the fumble 6 made it 21?
No, fumble 6 made it 14-6.
And then they scored again. Okay, so that next drive, so Mizzou gets the ball back, and third down, he was trying to do something. He like jumped over a defender and like got his leg caught and got sacked. It was just a weird play. And so the first like 4 drives were just kind of like, what the hell's going on? And then they settled down. Mizzou called a lot more run plays, a lot more like play action, and he settled down a lot, settled into the game really well, and started really distributing the ball. So I thought he was great. To end the game, it was 4th and 9. I think they were trailing, and he threw a dot to Kevin Coleman over the middle, right at the sticks.
Biggest play of the game.
Yeah, and it's just those kinds of throws. You're like, man, if they get that guy doing that, they're going to be a tough team to beat because they can spread the ball like east and west just as well as they can go vertical. So I think he looked great. He just had to settle down a little bit. I think the coaching staff can take a little bit out of that and say, we'll run him and we'll give him some easy throws and we'll let him work himself into the game rather than just give him the ball and say, make a play. That's not really a style.
I will make some similar parallels between him and Arch Manning later on in the show.
Sure.
But I like the receivers and I like the weapons for Mizzou. You have Kevin Coleman Jr., obviously St. Louis guy, really good. Norfleet, another St. Louis guy. And then you have true freshman Donovan Olugbode. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he looks like after Ahmad Hardy, he might be their second best player on offense. I mean, the guy's got great hands. You saw the one-handed catch. He's going to be a good player. He's going to be a 3-year starter. I don't really know what his NFL projection is yet, but that's one of those guys that Mizzou hasn't really been able to hit on. Obviously, they had Luther Burden last year, had him for 3 years, but when you have the talent that Mizzou has at the wide receiver position alongside a two-headed monster at running back, a lot of people will just say, well, the quarterback just needs to be a game manager. But Mizzou's had that, and it hasn't worked. And they need a quarterback that can do more beyond just staying in the pocket and throwing the ball. And so I like the way that Bo Pribula runs the ball. I just think that he's right now getting away with some of it due to inferior competition. I mean, like you said, he went 30 for 39, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks.
Right.
That could have been also the biggest storyline, too.
He had the fumble, but yeah.
And so really where I think that game kind of turned was when Jalen Daniels actually had that fumble that ended up in a safety. Yeah. So now it's 21-15, and now Mizzou gets a touchdown after that, and it's like, okay, now Mizzou should be in control of this game. That didn't happen, but the Kevin Coleman Jr. touchdown, which helped kind of even things back up. It's 21-21 at the end of the first half. And at that point, I think every Mizzou fan is just kind of sitting there confused. Like, I thought this was going to go a lot different. And to me, Mizzou has always excelled in the trenches and that linebacker.
Yep.
And sometimes at running back, kind of on and off, but where they have never truly excelled is in their secondary. And I feel like that's going to be their Achilles heel all season, is that if they can just play zone really well, because I don't think they have any man-to-man lock-up blanket coverage guys, but if their zone defense can get on the same page and stop leaving guys wide open, I mean, Jalen Daniels is not the best quarterback they're going to play all season. Not even close.
Well, just to that, who do you think is better? I'm looking at the schedule right now. Alabama is kind of sticks out to me as a team that can threaten them. I'm looking at Mizzou's DBs sitting there and thinking, okay, what guys are going to stretch the field on them? So Alabama, Ryan Williams in that squad, they'll be okay. Auburn can't throw the ball deep, so not worried about them. Texas A&M maybe. Oklahoma will be a tough one. That'll be the best maybe quarterback receiver combo they play all year. But I mean, that's 2 games maybe that I see, and I'm thinking, all right, like maybe this could be a tough one. But I think Mizzou kind of controls their own destiny. What was weird about the game was when they did tie the game up, I thought the second half would be a lot more Mizzou, and they ended up pulling away late. But it wasn't like we're going to lean on you and get everything we can out of this game, drain the clock, and just ground you into a pulp. That didn't happen. But Jalen Daniels, he's a 6-year guy. You're not going to play, again, Napier, maybe Oklahoma, but you're not going to play too many guys that have that many reps that will aggressively push the ball down the field. So for Mizzou, it was a good wake-up call. Like, hey, we can't just sleepwalk into any games. The final score is not indicative of how close that game actually was. It was back and forth until the final 4 minutes.
Right.
But to your point, though, I think Mizzou, with Luther Burden, it was like, get the ball to Luther. And it was kind of like, we'll just whatever else around the perimeter, or the tight end, we'll try to get it to him.
We weren't even leaning on his route running, just give him the ball in space.
Exactly, which was it was hard to watch at times. But now we can run the ball, and we'll see how effective they can do this. But we can also spread the ball down the field and around. So I'm really excited to see what Mizzou ends up putting together. Again, this is a team that can end up being 10-2. And there's not a great argument to keep them out of the college football playoff if they do what they're supposed to do.
Right. Ahmad Hardy, who I've been, trying to chant as the X factor of this offense. I mean, he's an NFL running back right now, breaking tackles before he even gets to the line of scrimmage, getting Mizzou out of 2nd and 11 or 2nd and 12. That's huge for an offense, and people might not look at it. I mean, he went over 100 yards. He had 22 rushes. Jamal Roberts, another St. Louis guy, had the big 63-yard run at the end. He goes 13 rushes for 143 yards. Yeah, it's the first time Mizzou has a combined 100-yard rusher since 2016. Yeah, so this offense is putting up numbers that we haven't seen in almost a decade. And to be honest with you, that's kind of the blueprint that Mizzou's going to need to follow, because their offensive line is good. I wouldn't say that they're great, but they're good. Sure. But they have enough of a threat at Perbula for these 2 running backs to operate in some space, whether it's catching the ball, running between the tackles. I think that they're very well equipped to do that. Norfleet, who had 2 touchdowns on the day, kind of seems just like a smart tight end, one of those guys who not very well known in college, but could end up in the 5th or 6th or 7th round of the NFL draft. And is just, this guy was a quality player for an SEC school for 3 or 4 years, and it has to count for something. So I really liked what I saw from him. Kirby Moore, the offensive coordinator for Mizzou, was scheming up great plays. Yep. The second touchdown, even to Norfleet, was a schemed up touchdown. Had everybody flowing one way. Here goes Norfleet across the other side, and he catches it and could have just walked into the end zone. The RPO play that got Kevin Coleman a touchdown. And then a big thing for me that you really don't see for a lot from Mizzou receivers is the physicality. On that long run from Jamal Roberts, you saw the running backs or the receivers blocking for him down the field and holding on to those blocks. Yes, these are not freaking Alabama or Auburn corners, but at the same time, that's effort plays that need to be made, because if Mizzou gets stopped on 4 downs and gives the ball back to KU, who knows what happens if they don't score. And so they were only up 4 points. Ended up stretching that lead to 43-31 or 42-31. But overall, I would say that I was pretty impressed with how Mizzou was able to handle that lightning strike from KU at the beginning, because they're down 15 points. That's not what anybody expected. That's not any of the analysts or commentators even expect. You could just feel it in the air. And it was just one mistake that KU needs to make, and that was that safety fumble, which they're lucky didn't turn into a touchdown. That kind of flipped the whole game.
And so I guess if you're looking at Mizzou and their recipe for success,
Yeah.
is it that they need 600 yards? Like they had what 550 or 590 yards of offense, 595 last. Like, is that the recipe for success? Bo throwing the ball 40 times a game.
It
I mean,
could
there are a
it
lot
could
of possessions,
it
but
sounds good, but that's not realistic because when you
yeah,
play against, I mean, you're going to play against Louisiana Monroe. You might have 500 yards offense against them, depending on how late the starters are in the game. But then you go to South Carolina, or you play South Carolina, and it's like, all right, the number one goal is to get Lenore Sellers off the field and keep him off the field. So if that
right.
is a bunch of yards, or that's just running it down South Carolina's throat, that's going to have to be the game plan because the longer you put South Carolina on the field, the more times that Lenore Sellers has to break a play open or make one of those back-breaking plays, it could kill a whole game. And they play UMass on the 27th, but then they go right into Alabama right after that. So there really is no time for Mizzou's offense to take a step back.
I would agree with that. I think the question is can let's say they get into one of these dog fights where it's not high scoring. We're not looking at 73-point totals, and
Right.
we're looking at a game where it's both teams have under 25 points. Can Mizzou sustain drives long enough to keep the defense fresh and also put together a drive where you have to go 80 yards in 11 plays? Not every time, but can
Right.
they do that consistently against a good defense? One note that I had about Mizzou's offensive line is that they weren't great against the pass rush. Now, I don't know if that was Bo not adjusting the line or not picking up blitzers and shifting things, or if that just was a center missing it. I'm not sure what the case was there, but I felt like Kansas had a lot of pressure on the quarterback the first 3 quarters. And that's not a defense that we would look at and say, that's a top 25 defense. We wouldn't say that at
Right.
all. So like South Carolina will be a humongous test, and that'll be a team where they probably have the amount of physicality that a team like Mizzou has not seen yet, and it's been a minute. So, but then they'll roll into UMass and then Alabama, and so they're the gauntlet that they have will be pretty tough. But I don't know, can Mizzou sustain what they did against Kansas? If the offense can be explosive, that's great. Can the defense get enough stops? And they did last week, and we'll see what happens in
Well,
two
here's
weeks.
my thing. And Mizzou gets lucky with the drop from Alabama transfer Emmanuel Henderson.
That was
That
tough for
was
me.
when it was 35-31 with 2:45 left. They
Yeah,
convert that, you never know. Then they have
right.
the possession before that where Jalen Daniels throws an amazing 75-yard bomb. He receiver toasted the Mizzou secondary, and he drops that too. And so it's like if he converts on two of those plays, because the 75-yarder was going for a touchdown, and if he completes that corner route, I don't know. This game could have been flipped on its head, or KU's winning 38-35 and off a Mizzou missed game winning field goal. Who knows how the game ends up? I just think that Mizzou did get a little lucky. I think that
Sure.
it takes a little luck to come down from 15, just some mental errors from the other team. But I'm I'm definitely, I wouldn't say I'm satisfied with their offensive line
Mhm.
because I definitely have some concerns going against these really physical teams they're going to be playing up against because they have South Carolina, who's now ranked, Mizzou, who's ranked 25th this Monday, South Carolina 11th, Alabama 19th, Auburn 24th, and then you have Texas A&M who's sitting at 16th. So the schedule doesn't get any easier. It doesn't get any less physical. And you're at home for a lot of these games, except for Auburn. So and Auburn and Vanderbilt. So you better take advantage of not having to travel anywhere. And
Yeah,
go
which is
ahead.
huge. And what I would say too is maybe for the first time in a bit, it feels like this offense can pop you for one. And that threat hold, you can't blitz off of that.
Right.
You can't play man free off of that. You have to sit back, maybe even two safeties at times. And depending on how they're running the ball, maybe just one. And so they have the chance to, like, again, they're down 15 and the script did not change. We're going to run the rock,
Yep.
play action, and we're going to let things kind of play out. And that's exactly what happened. So I look at this offense and I think they have a chance to really hit you and they could put some points up on you quick. And so it's, can that defense keep up and can they hold long drives? If anybody can hit a big play once or twice, can they sustain long drives with that offensive line and get a
Yeah.
good push?
Yeah, I've never really been a fan of Mizzou's pistol offense over the years. I think
Yeah.
that it only really is super effective when you have two like star backs, not just one good guy and then some other guy is just picking up when he's fatigued. That pistol offense, you're not getting under center at all. You're not in really regular shotgun hardly at all. So when you're in the pistol, how effective can you actually be? I never really have known a pistol offense to actually work that well. But if you're gonna have two running backs who are gonna run that hard, maybe so, and it may be a lot easier for Kirby Moore to scheme up plays off the play action. And so if they're gonna do that, it's gonna fall back on Bro Pabula to go at least 26 for 40 or 26 for 39, and he's going to need 300 yards, and he's probably going to need another 50 or 60 on the ground or something like that because, yeah, their offense is built to sustain drives against KU and Vanderbilt and Mississippi State. But can they answer down 14-0 against Oklahoma? What do they do when they're down 21-7 against Alabama? That looks totally different than 21-6 against KU.
Well, that and if you say Bo Prabula can do that against these teams, or if he has a chance to do that, then he's a Heisman guy. And I don't know that any of us really thought that coming into the season that he had this kind of upside. And so I'm wondering, is Kansas defense just not great, and we're going to really find out what the kid's made of, or is just what he does? Yes, he plays loose, and he kind of has like a Baker Mayfield feel to him, where it's like he's a good athlete, but not like as good as he thinks.
Not overwhelming, right? Yeah.
But he can sling a little bit. He's pretty accurate. So those kinds of things, if what you're saying is true, where they have to throw the ball 30 times, he's going to be like in that conversation at the end of the year, assuming they don't lose more than 3 games this year.
Right. Well, let's jump to the biggest game of the weekend, which was Oklahoma versus Michigan. The top-rated high school recruit versus the top-rated transfer portal recruit. Bryce Underwood, who looked all of advertised against New Mexico, just looking at the tape, not really worrying about the opponent. And then John Mateer, who also had a great game against FCS team, looked, all as advertised as well. So now these two meet in Norman. Bryce Underwood, first road game of his career. He goes 9 for 24 and 142 yards. And that box score looks terrible. I don't think he played that bad because I think his receivers hold him back a little bit. And I think that Michigan is in this weird transition period where like they're known for the hardball, hard-nosed running team. JJ McCarthy, who comes in as this guy who is the ultimate game manager. I mean, that's how he got drafted. But you had a crazy offensive line. Your D-line had Mason Graham and all those guys. Then you had running backs like Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. And you had Will Johnson in the secondary. Like, they just had a loaded roster for about 3 or 4 years straight, and that's why they beat Ohio State. But now I'm looking at Bryce Underwood and what he likes to do and what he's comfortable with, and just appeasing a guy that you're paying $14-15 million for. You're going to turn into a new team. And I don't know if Michigan is ready for that yet. And on the flip side, Mateer goes 21 for 34, looks 270 yards, a touchdown and a pick, but he looks more comfortable than anybody out there. And I know that they brought the offensive coordinator from Washington State to Oklahoma, and I think that might be the cheat code when we talk about the transfer portal later, as far as what is it going to take for these quarterbacks to succeed in these new programs that are going from, the Pac-12 low-level competition to Oklahoma SEC every week is a dogfight.
So we'll touch on this maybe later, like you said, but having guys that have seen like live bullets for 4, 5, 6 years.
It's huge. Yes,
it's humongous because there's only so many things you can do on a college football field. And once you've seen it so many times, like, okay, I know where to put the ball. Now, having your offensive coordinator who knows your strengths is also a humongous cheat code. Mm-hmm. Now, what I would say about Mateer is this guy is a good athlete. He's like, we'll call it like a Johnny Manziel type. He's a bigger frame, but like that's kind of how he plays.
That's a correct and great comp for Mateer.
That's exactly it almost run the same. So he had 19 carries, which will, I don't know how you define a carry for him, but 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he's responsible for 3 total touchdowns and 1 interception. And so he accounted for all the scores that they had minus the field goal.
Right.
And so that's a guy where seen a lot of football, seen a lot of action, very comfortable in the pocket. And I'm looking at the box, and 6 different guys have caught a pass. And their best player is Burks. I don't remember his first name.
Deion Burks.
Yes, and so he played fantastic as well. He's going to get his catches. That's going to be the 1-2 punch right there. But I look at Oklahoma and think this is a team that they spread it around enough. He's seen enough. He's athletic enough. I mean, the sky's the limit for this team. Going back to Michigan and Bryce Underwood, I agree with you. I didn't think that. Yeah, he missed a lot of passes, and yes, like you said, his receivers and that core is going to hold him back a little bit this year. So hopefully next year they can really bring in some guys. But that, like you said as well, that's a complete identity flip from where they've been, which is ground and pound, and like we'll throw the deep ball, but we're gonna throw a lot of crossers over the middle when you're playing man to man trying to stop our runs. So I don't know where Sharon Moore and this offense goes. Because certainly you have to put pieces around this guy or he's out of there and you've blown $14 million. And what looks to be like one of the best quarterback prospects we've seen in a long time. And the kid is huge. and he's got a cannon, and he'll throw it deep. He's not scared of that. And so if I'm a Michigan fan, I'm thinking this year's kind of a wash. It is what it is. We'll see what he does against Ohio State. But next year, I really want this to be a conversation of we're in the playoffs, and it's just a question of like how far can we go.
And I think that's the ultimate expectation of a guy that you pay that much money for, regardless of his recruiting style or recruiting class number, whatever ESPN, 24/7 had him at. You're expecting him to kind of carry this offense in times of trouble. And to ask a freshman to do that, that's very hard. There's only so many freshmen we see on the field. And we talk about Johnny Manziel. He was a redshirt freshman.
Right.
So it's very different. And they play Central Michigan here coming up, which should be a good stats game again for him. But then he plays Nebraska and Wisconsin. He goes to Nebraska, and they're not ranked, but that environment for a true freshman, I mean, that's unlike anything he's going to play against this season until they play against Ohio State.
Right.
They got Wisconsin. They got Wisconsin after that. USC, Washington. Like the Big Ten is not slowing up, and only towards the end of the season does it get a little light for them with Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, and Maryland. But they have Ohio State at home, so that's good for him that he doesn't have to worry about that. But I just think that the identity flip for Michigan as a team is the reason why they might have some trouble this year. They might struggle with Nebraska and Wisconsin. I'm not sure, because the way that I see it is that right now Michigan just looks like a hotbed for transfer portal receivers.
So I agree with that, and that's how it should be. The question is if I'm in the running for being a Michigan wide receiver recruit, then Penn State's also up there, and Ohio State's also up there. And I don't know how I would justify going to Michigan over Ohio State if
the quarterback
down to. And maybe, but Julian Sain can spin it too, and he's not as athletic, so the ball is coming out, and he's very accurate. And Brian
Julian Sain, I mean, yeah, just a quick point on him. He went 18 for 19, 4 touchdowns, and the only incompletion was an interception.
Right. So like that's a guy where he's throwing darts everywhere across the field. Now, my thing about Michigan is they haven't really had a quarterback that's willing to push the ball downfield. And so Bryce being that, it's like it's kind of fun. It'd be kind of fun to watch. And he's athletic enough to where he might bust one and run for 70 yards too. What's going to be interesting with him specifically and this team is like they don't finish drives. I don't know how many times in that game it's like they cross the 50-yard line, cross the 40-yard line, and nothing like materialize out of that. And so I don't know if that's play calling. I don't know if that's a young quarterback not executing. There are a lot of different things in there. Maybe the run game isn't as strong, but they're not finishing drives at all. And those are the things where it's like, yes, we're not a great football team, but those things we can do. And I'm not sure they have the capability, so maybe they're just not going to be very good this year.
Well, I think a key part that and why I think Drew Aller might struggle this year a little bit too is they're missing that tight end. Colson Loveland last year for Michigan was that glue guy on their offense. And if you watched Penn State kind of struggle with FIU, it's like, well, yeah, he just lost the best tight end in the country in Tyler Warren, and he doesn't have that security blanket anymore. I think if Bryce Underwood had a tight end like that, then I think his stats look a little bit different because on second and short and third and short, he's not looking to spread the ball on the outside. He can fit it into a tight window to a tight end who's going to catch the ball. Mm-hmm. So I think it's one of those things where the personnel might be a little off for what they want to do with Bryce Underwood. It's just the expectations are going to have to come around that sophomore season because I don't think that they're a playoff team this year. The talent around him might be good, but I don't think it's good enough. I don't see that Michigan team competing with Ohio State. I mean, USC might be a more fair game for them, even Washington. And so I like what I see from Bryce Underwood. I just think for right now, he just takes Michigan's ceiling and raises it. And it's like, okay, Bryce Underwood's up here. We need everybody else to shorten that gap because this guy is legit. There's nobody that's coming in that's going to take his spot. We know what quarterback we have, and now we just got to get the talent around him. Justice Haynes, the transfer running back, he had 100 yards on the ground, so it's not like he doesn't have any running backs. Michigan's always going to have running backs. They got that one kid, Savion Hitter, coming in, who's like the number one running back in the country or something like that. He's coming to Michigan next year. Like they're always going to be good at running back from what their NFL lineage shows, and so I'm not worried about Bryce Underwood throwing the ball. 9 for 24 doesn't look great.
Sure.
But I'm more so interested to see how this team's dynamic changes either throughout the year or in the transfer portal when they reload with weapons.
So saying that, one of the notes I had about Oklahoma going into the game, even when they played Illinois State, was the O-line did not play great. I didn't think that they played great against an FCS team, and I thought Michigan, if it's historical Michigan, would kind of eat that up a little bit, and that just wasn't the case. And so it goes back to the point we were talking about before, and I don't even remember what team we were talking about it with, but when your identity is the offense, when the offense is like the engine of the team instead of the defense, you're going to have things like defensive line in the trenches isn't going to be as strong. If you're a more of a finesse team, which is what Michigan probably has to do with that kind of quarterback and the head coach that they have, we're going to see this defense, I think, shift to be like a bend in like we kind of break, but we kind of don't because our offense scores a lot of points. And so like a true identity shift will have to occur. And I don't know how that looks because we haven't seen that kind of Michigan since Donardo Robinson.
Right. And I could tell you the identity shift that I think happened to a program, they've always been elite, is Oregon. And you've seen in the draft past couple of years, they have D linemen and linebackers and corners that are going high in the draft, and they started prioritizing their defense. And they're a premier program, yes, because of their offense and their uniforms look amazing. They've always had a good quarterback, but that defense they're recruiting like guys from out east and down south, and they're bringing that identity up to Oregon. And I think that's really helped Dan Lanning and that whole Oregon just program shift their identity to being a more complete team. Yes, the flashy offense, the RPO, all that was birthed right in Oregon. But to be a real team, and you saw it last year, even when they went up against Ohio State, they have to get that defensive side of the ball right. The offense can look however you want. Yeah, Dylan Gabriel was one of the best quarterbacks in college. Doesn't matter. Jeremiah Smith looked like Megatron out there against them.
So, and Dan Lanning is a great example because that's an SEC guy. It's a Kirby Smart guy, which is a Nick Saban guy who goes up north and is like, we're going to do things differently. But they still lost to teams that had less talent. Washington, the year before that, beat them twice. And nobody, like, Washington in that roster, the offense was fantastic in Kalen DeBoer's team. But Oregon had more talent and they lost both times. Then they play Ohio State again in a big game and they get throttled. Yeah. It was embarrassing. So like we'll see if that shift can truly take hold. I don't know. We'll find out. But Dan Lanning is certainly the guy. But to be fair, like Michigan is a team. Penn State might have to do the same thing. Running the ball and having a quarterback that throws the ball 19 times and it's like super inconsistent, super ugly is not a recipe for success. And Penn State's a team where like they have high expectations. This is one of the best rosters they've ever had.
Their championship or bust this year. Katron Allen, 16 carries for 144 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, he's fighting with Jeremiah Love as the best running back in college right now. Drew Aller goes 19 for 33, has 2 touchdowns, but you're just kind of missing. It's like when you're watching Clemson and you're watching Cade Klubnik, it's like something's not
this is coaching. Right. This is offensive coordinator spreading the ball, scheming guys open. And again, when your identity is running the football and being tough on defense, the job of the offense is to not give the ball away. Right. And so you're not going to call plays where it's a 50-50 ball downfield. That's not happening. We're not doing that. We'll get a flag every once in a while potentially, but tight end over the middle, get to 2nd and 6, get to 3rd and 2 and try to convert that. That's the way they play. And so you're never going to get that opportunity to be a high-powered offense unless you play a cupcake.
Got it. So let's get off Michigan and Oklahoma. Just a couple other notes. Speaking of Oregon, beat the freaking crap out of Oklahoma State. Don't remember when the last time Oklahoma State was this bad. I know Oregon was favored by, I want to say almost like 30 points that game.
Like 38, yeah.
And, they scored 3. And it's like, Coach Gundy's saying something about, we spent, what do you say? We spent $3 million on our roster in the past 3 years, and then like Oregon spent 40 like in the past like 2 seasons or something like that. Coach Lanning's like, yeah, we're paying guys to win, and maybe Oklahoma State should try doing the same thing if they feel like winning some games. And I think that's kind of the name of the game now is like if you're going to be a program that's going to fall behind on this NIL thing because you think that these kids deserve a certain amount and that's it, or you don't believe in that structure, you're going to fall behind. The joke is just going to be on you at the end of the day. Like Oklahoma State has no business scoring only 3 points against Oregon. I don't care who Oregon has on their team. That's fair. I just think that it's embarrassing when these programs, I mean, we talk about the haves and have-nots. In the NFL, it's the biggest case of it. But in college football, if you're not going to spend, you're not going to win. And if you're not going to win, I think having a job is more important than your feelings towards an 18 or 19-year-old getting a few $1 million.
I agree with that. And I'm not even sure if it's a Mike Gundy thing. I'm not sure if he's like,
It
I'm
could be
not
a
doing
school-wide
NIL.
thing. It could be the, hey, this is our budget and you're not touching it. I don't know.
And they're close enough to oil money where they could grab some. So maybe it is just an overall philosophy on player. If this is the case where you're a Baylor, you're an SMU, you might have some money to spend, but not a ton. It goes back to the coaches being really good talent evaluators. It goes back to your GM being really good at putting a philosophy in place on we're going to just be good on this side of the ball at doing this specific thing. We might not have a great quarterback, but we might have great running backs and great offensive line, and we'll just beat teams doing that. Or the opposite might be true as well. So I think if you're going to play the NIL game of like we don't have a ton of money, kind of cry wolf a little bit, which like Oklahoma State they could find the money for sure. And to be fair, Oregon has all that money, haven't done anything with it, so I'm not even convinced that it's really working yet. But you're gonna have to go back to like, can this kid play for me? And so you're looking at FCS guys coming. You're looking at your non-power four kids like transferring over. That has to be and like we talk about these millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like you played junior college football, I played college football. You played Division II, I played Division I AA. Like there are plenty of guys that on your team that are on my team that played in the NFL that got at least got a shot, and those are good players. And so coaches need to be going and finding those players and bringing them over because I'll tell you what, I played at Southeast Missouri State, SEMO. You played at Lindenwood. Like we would have gladly transferred up to Oklahoma State just to be in that. As opposed to
so as opposed to being a low budget school, correct? Yeah,
and so and back then there wasn't NIL money, and we would have had to maybe sit out a year if we did that. So to think that you can't go and get those guys, I think is lazy. And if you're like,
correct.
we're gonna sit here and not have NIL dollars or budget to spend on players, like that's just you.
Your brand not strong enough. You're Oklahoma State. You're not OU. You're not Tennessee. Hell, I mean. Mizzou has a stronger football name and brand established than Oklahoma State. And so for you to sit back and just be like, okay, these in-state kids will be happy to come here, or we'll just get, I'm sure they did get some kids who were just happy to beat Oklahoma State. Well, sorry, you schedule Oregon. It ain't time to have kids on the field who are just happy to be there because that's how you end up with 3 points.
And to be fair, I look at a school like Kansas, and that's not a school that's going to be like the basketball program might outspend the football program when it comes to NIL dollars, maybe. And so, but that team can compete with an SEC team who might go 10 wins and 2 losses. Right. So again, the excuses that we saw SMU last year made it to the playoff. Like so there's a whole lot of things that I look at and I think, I don't accept that excuse. And Dan Lanning made a snark comment before the game happened. He was like, if you're going to complain about our budget, like I'm sure, is it Tennessee Tech or Tennessee Martin that they played before? You know, they didn't have the same budget you guys did. So like, It's just, there are levels to it. I don't appreciate Mike Gundy going underneath and being like, well, we don't have the budget because, but you still have to coach.
It's lazy.
That's not about it.
Right, yeah. It's lazy. You can talk about the resources, Nike for Oregon, whatever. Regardless, you have to go on the recruiting trail and you need to hire a team full of scouts who are going into the trenches of, I mean, Lindenwood's in St. Charles, Missouri, and we have a guy in the NFL who's been in the NFL since I left. He's going on year like 6 or 7. So it's like you can find guys, 6'5" D tackle. There's no way he should have been playing D2. But the rules were the rules then, and you know, that guy has a long NFL career, might be able to retire, and who knows? But at the level that Oklahoma State's at, I don't understand where the excuses are, and they're definitely running out because NIL is not. It's new, but it's not new anymore. Like we know what's going on, we know what's happening. You know the window of transfer that you can get. You know the money that you're able to spend, and the rev share is coming. So it's in place for you to go and spend that money because football is getting the majority of it. And if you're just going to be lazy or you're going to try to hoard all that money for yourself and just worried about a contract extension and just worried about being average, well, you're going to be out because these investors and alumni are chasing these other schools.
And is Coach Gundy the guy that can walk in a living room and say, I want your son to play for me, and your parents are going to say, for sure, we want you to play for this guy? Like, and maybe not. It's looking like probably not. So is there a coaching change to come at that school where you find a guy to walk in and you're like, okay, my son will play for that guy?
And I think on the reverse side of that, I think Alabama's having the struggle of like Alabama is just kind of
we're lazy.
You're relying on Alabama being the name, and you've got DeBoer who is actively changing the environment and the culture of that program. And we might look up 3 or 4 years from now, and they might have turned into Auburn. Auburn's kind of an afterthought. Ever since Gus Malzahn kind of left Auburn, they haven't really been much of a, like the most famous player that's came from Auburn is probably Bo Nix, and he transferred
Since recently, yeah.
So it's
it was better. It was better.
Yeah. It was better when he left, and so we can get off of them, and we could talk about USF beating Florida for a little bit, because last week I said Byron Brown is top 5 quarterback for me. I think a lot of people were kind of raising their eyebrow at it, but he goes 23 for 36 on the road, 17 carries for 66 yards, and outplays DJ Lagway, who was coming into the season as a Heisman guy. And now I'm looking at DJ Lagway like, okay, true sophomore, he's probably on the market after this season. And if Florida fires Napier, he's out of there. Your highest rated recruit guy, he's out of there. So now you're going to start over at quarterback after this year too, because DJ Lagway is not going to put up with that. I mean, we could talk about his individual performance and how he is as a quarterback alone, because he might have been a little bit overrated coming into this season. And I think the way that they ended the season last year is what gave a lot of people hope. But if you look at Florida's schedule coming up, they're losing to USF. They're not beating anybody this year. They're not.
At all. And big picture with Florida is the expectation versus reality. They,
Correct.
again, don't fire Billy Napier because the contract buyout is crazy. And somebody was breaking this down, but you end up looking at it and it ends up being, and for DeBoer, it's like 80 million, but at Florida, it's somewhere like probably 40. And it's like, well, what do you do if you've got a coach that like players like, but he's not winning? I've got a superstar at quarterback, or so we think, right? I'm almost to the point where, like, if you put, this is a different topic, I guess, but like Lenore Sellers, you put DJ Lagway, and you put like a Bryce Underwood all in the same group of guys. Like, I'm not sure Bryce isn't the best one of those three. Now, I haven't seen him play enough, and Lenore Sellers is a great player. But you look at it, like, I don't know if DJ Lagway's the guy, but if I'm trying to get rid of Billy Napier, he signs a 7-year, $51 million deal in 2021. I believe, let's see, 85% of that is still left over. So you go and you fire him if you can. So let's call that 25 million to be conservative. Well, you have to go and get rid of all the other coordinators too, so they have guarantees. So let's just call that 4 million. And then you got to go and you got to like pay players to stay, which is probably 10.
Correct.
That's probably 10, maybe 10 to 20. Let's call it 15. So right there, we're already at like 45 million. And then I have to go and pay another coach who's going to want 50 million or 40 million, if not more. You get a big name like John Gruden's out there. It's like, well, he's not going to come to school and coach for 25 million. If I get a guy like Dan Lanning, he's not leaving Oregon for that. And he's definitely going to need some guarantees. And so it's 40 million for them to get out, plus keep players, and then another 30 to 40 to bring in a new coach, and then to get more NIL money to pay more. So
more guys, right?
I'm looking at Florida, and I feel bad for the alumni, the people who really care about the program, because this is just a team that's like, they can't get out of their own way, and I'm sure they're going to bounce back and play a good game against somebody and lose in a valiant, effort. But it's like, what is going on? And I just don't know where they go from here, because we as college football fans deserve a good Florida State team, a good Miami team, and a good Florida Gators team. And they're kind of dropping the ball right now, and it's hard to watch because I don't know where they go from here.
Well, they go nowhere. They're screwed. They play LSU, L. They play Miami, L. They play Texas, L. They play Texas A&M, probably an L.
Yep.
Mississippi State just beat Arizona State. So as bad as Mississippi State was 2-10 last year, they go and beat number 12 Arizona State, who might not be as good as we think. But that team's not going to be 2-10 this season. If Mississippi State wins 7 or even 6 games, they probably got 3 or 4 of those that are really close. And so then right after Mississippi State, they play Georgia, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Tennessee. I mean, you could be looking at a 4-win Florida team right now. And I could tell you what, anybody going to Florida and winning 4 or 5 games, or let's just say not being bowl eligible, you're asking to have to flip over a whole roster. And I don't think that you're just going to be able to recover in a year's worth of time.
And you have to now outspend Florida State, Miami, and all the other schools just to get guys.
You're not outspending Miami. It's not happening.
And so let's just pretend that you can. Now you have to pay over market for all of these guys. And we know as prospects, no matter how many 4 stars and 5 stars you get on the roster, some just aren't going to work out.
Right.
Circumstance or whatever. Like, so you know that you're going to miss. So you're going to be depositing $1 to $2 million in these kids' accounts, and they're not worth it at all. And so it's just like a vicious cycle. And we'll see. There will be universities that just go through this where it's like, we invest in a kid, he doesn't work out. We invest in another kid, doesn't work out. We get a new coach, doesn't work out.
Doesn't
we have a
work
GM.
out.
So it's like, it's just not fun. And you look at being in the SEC is just an unforgiving schedule. And I think they will give LSU some fits. Like, don't be surprised if that game is close in the fourth quarter. Like, and even I don't know what the spread is on that game, but Florida, if it's more than like 7 points, I would take Florida to cover just because of the way that like they're going to bounce back.
That game could be right, yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know what you do if you're a Florida Gator fan and you look up in your team like, we have the right quarterback. I've got some talent. And from the reports, that operation, the facilities, all that they have for the players is elite. It's in the top 10. And like, if you're an outsider looking in, maybe you don't see it, but it's up there. And so now, like, why am I losing to a team? Why am I losing to a school in my state? That shouldn't be happening as a 40 Gator.
Right. So let's go around some other quarterback play around the country. Nico Emiliava is now 0-2 at UCLA. I think my prediction of him transferring out of UCLA after this year, I think it's going to come more into fruition. Amaris Brown on UNLV, who called him out earlier in the week, said, honestly, nothing really sticks out to me about him. And Amaris Brown also did get the game-sealing interception. So I think that was kind of funny. Thomas Castellanos, he threw 11 passes. He only had to throw 11 passes, still had 237 yards, 3 touchdowns, 77-3 win. Carson Beck, 22 of 24, 267 yards, 2 TDs, adding to the books. So Mississippi State, who gets Blake Shapen from Baylor, who only played 4 games last year due to a shoulder injury. He goes 19 for 33, 279 yards and 3 touchdowns. He lost his spot to Sawyer Robinson at Baylor. He comes to Mississippi State, injures his shoulder, and now he's back. And, it just had that big win against Arizona State. I don't know how good Mississippi State is going to be, but just a good story for me. Julian Sayin, like I said earlier, 18 for 19, 306 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. And they also have a running back named Bo Jackson on their team. He went 9 carries for 108 yards. I thought that was kind of funny. And then we could touch on this a little bit, but Clemson has to be the worst top 10 team still in this AP poll, because them almost losing to Troy, I know they came back and won. The game was delayed a little bit. Maybe that helped out Clemson. Maybe it didn't. But Troy jumped on their ass. And I don't know what's going on with this Clemson offense. That defense is special, and they have all the talent there. But for some reason, Cade Klubnik, when you turn on the TV and just watch him play QB, it just doesn't look as easy, doesn't look as smooth as you would just want it to think. Yeah.
Well, with him and Clemson, you kind of have to wonder if, we go from, was it Taj Gibson was a quarterback prior to Deshaun Watson?
Like that, yeah.
And then it was Trevor Lawrence after. And so you have those two guys, and like, I don't know who we compared Cade to, because if it's DJU, it's
Taj Boyd, that's what his name was.
Taj Boyd, sorry, Taj Boyd, yes. Taj Gibson is playing the NBA. I don't know who we compared Cade to, but 2 things. Number one is the Clemson offense has just looked different. So they're not great. I don't know if Cade is great. I also don't know if they have the athletes. What made Clemson special, and people don't really want to say this, was they had unbelievable receivers and tight ends. Mm-hmm. Like who Deshaun was throwing to, who Trevor Lawrence was throwing to. Some of those guys are still in the NFL right now getting paid T. Higgins huge dollars. And so if you don't have the weapons on the outside, it's really hard. Like, you have to scheme up everything, and it's very easy to predict. I in the offseason for Clemson, I'll keep saying this, but I think Cade should transfer. I think he should go somewhere else, because this is not going to be what he thinks it's going to be. And to be honest with you, the only reason they're in the top, they're even ranked at all right now, is because they're a preseason high ranking. They should not be. They've done nothing to be like, we deserve to be the top 12 team in the country right now. Like, that's not. Right. They're probably going to go and lose to Georgia Tech. Like, that's just the way it is.
I could see that happening. Yeah.
And so I don't know. Dabo has to come around the times too. Clemson has the money. Like, he needs to get on board and be like, we're going to pay guys. We're going to pay guys that don't fit our culture all the way. We're going to pay guys that we typically would not pay. We're going to go and get a quarterback out of the portal. We're going to go and get a defensive lineman who can do real damage. Like, Clemson, any team, if your team has a good offensive line and good defensive line, then you never play down to your competition, because your guys maul their guys on both sides of the ball. And Clemson, as we can tell, plays down to their competition religiously. And to be fair, their defense is actually much better than their offense is. That's why they held LSU to only 17 points. But I think Dabo's another guy where you're like, I can't doubt what he's done, because with Taj Boyd, he did win 10 games with him, and then national championship with Deshaun and Trevor. So I don't know where you go with him either. He's stuck.
How about a bad or disappointing season? Let's say they just don't make the playoffs.
Sure.
Is he hot seat?
I think you have to. I think you have to say that we can't keep going this way. You said give you time, we'll give you patience. You had DJU, you had Kelly Bryant before that, DJU, and now you got Cade. So like I'll give you two bad quarterbacks that you just didn't, weren't feeling. But I can't sit here and say we can keep doing the same thing over and over because I got Miami in the conference who's looking pretty good. I've got say it again.
Florida State.
Without saying, I have Florida State in the conference as well, looking pretty good. So we're third now, and we lost 2 games last year. So I don't know how you can say he's not on the hot seat. I don't know who you replace him with. I'm not a big fire the coach guy, but I also can't say that you can keep doing things your way. I think the boosters are going to get their way, and we're going to say, hey, here's 10, 15, 20. We know guys are going to stay because you recruited them. Go get somebody else. Go get multiple guys and make this offense work because it's not.
Yeah, I think that's a very good topic for another episode. But the patience between alumni and boosters versus who is at the coaching helm and who's been there, as a legacy act. Like Dabo Sweeney at this point is kind of running off the success that he had in the past decade. Right. And so did these new alumni and new donors, do they care about that? Because I don't think they do, because the money that is being spent versus the performance that they're getting, nobody's spending a couple $1 million every single offseason just for, Clemson, who is supposed to make the playoffs. So let's put that out there. They're supposed to be in the playoffs. So anything they do after that is what they're expecting. So go ahead.
Well, I guess the question becomes, who's the boss in college football? Because if it's Phil Knight, or that, his organization, or it's Nike, okay, well, they run Oregon. And like, who's the boss down in Clemson? Well, it's the boosters. If they're the ones who are going to give or not give you money, same with Alabama. Like, who's the real boss? And so you can't be stuck in your ways, not overachieving, and ask me to still support what you're doing and not have me throw around my weight and say, I have $4 or $5 million for this program that I can give you. If you can just adjust and go recruit in the portal. If you can't, then I'm just going to sit here and watch you burn it down. And the next guy, I'll put him in my pocket.
And I think that'll make a lot of coaching contracts and extensions a little bit more difficult, because if you're trying to get a guy, let's say you are Florida trying to get not even a John Gruden, but a guy that's in college now, like not Dan Lanning, because he's probably not going anywhere, but somebody.
Call it Lincoln Riley.
Lincoln Riley, there we go. What guarantees and what security does he have going down to Florida with the money that he could spend, the games he's allowed to lose, essentially, and what are the expectations? Because I need to have the security that I can be here for 3 years and maybe not make the playoffs in 2 of them, and I'm not on the hot seat going into the next season when my recruiting may or may not be down. So I wonder if these coaching contracts get a little bit more tricky, because they definitely have lately with all these buyouts, all these clauses that are in it, but the money's only growing. I just really wonder if these coaching extensions or coaching contracts start to look a little bit different, or if the money is just a little bit lower, but the guarantees or the incentives are maybe a little bit higher.
They could be, and I think you're going to have to start grading coaches on what they do when it comes to keeping players and then getting players out of the portal or from high school. Like, we're going to have to start looking at the composite of what you can recruit. The thing about Mario Cristobal down at Miami is, like, he's underachieved the first couple of years he's been there, but the guy can freaking recruit. And so every year it's like they're in the top 5, top 3, like they're really up there, and they're landing new guys. You Cam Moore last year, Carson Beck this year. It's like They keep landing guys. He's going to keep getting chances because the talent is there. And so he can say, just give me more money, give me more time. This roster is about to explode. Mike Norvell, he 2 years ago was fantastic. Last year, not so good. So if he, again, has a fantastic year this year, it's just give me more money. You see what I can do when I have the cash and the right guys. We're going to go excel. And so I think the coaching campaigns are going to be, maybe give me time, but watch who I recruit with the right capital. And to be even more crystal clear on this, like, if you're going to take a job, you have to wonder who you're going to be recruiting. You actually have to know this. If I'm a Marcus Freeman and a job comes open, I have to look at let's say the Alabama job comes open. I don't want it to. I really like Kalen DeBoer, but let's say it does. Can I recruit down south, like with Georgia and Kirby Smart? Can I compete against Dan Lanning? Can I compete against Miami?
Or how long is it going to take? Yeah.
So, like, I have to make these inroads at these high schools. I have to talk to these I have to talk to these agents of these kids. Like, I have to make all these inroads. And so if I'm let's say Dabo is on the hot seat and he gets fired in 2 years and somebody else steps in, how am I going to out recruit some of these schools, assuming I even have the cash? as me as a new guy who was up north coming down south. Lincoln Riley was in the Big 12, and I was in the who was in the Pac, would have been the Pac-12, now the Big
Now the
10.
Big 10.
Coming down south, it's like, can he recruit with these guys? Because he can sell. LA is sick. You would love LA, but like not now. If you're in Gainesville, Florida, Gainesville stinks. But they have a lot of money. So can he recruit the same way? Can he make the same inroads? Will these high school coaches and will these agents and these different guys who have power in college football, will they take a liking to any of the up north guys, and vice versa? Can you recruit, up north if you're in this? So I don't know. I think you have to, if you're going to take a coaching job and take a change, maybe I'm changing my mind on Marcus Reed. Maybe he stays at Notre Dame for a long time because he can clearly recruit the kids that he wants, and they will pay him. The NBC money is strong, and they will pay him.
That's a fact.